In this video, we will dive into the movie Cruella. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and character. Additionally, we'll cover the film's production detail and box office performance. Finally, we will share reviews and personal reactions. So let's begin. When we begin our discussion about Cruella, it's important to slow down and really appreciate why this film stand out in today's cinematic landscape. At first glance, it might seem like just another Disney live action remake, but on the surface, it offers much more. This is not a simple retelling, it's a bold reimagining that blends genres, challenges expectation, and gives us a fresh perspective on a well known character. Let's start with the genre. Cruella is not confined to one category, it skillfully mixes crime, comedy, drama, and a touch of psychological character study. That combination alone make it worth discussing. Unlike traditional Disney films that focuses on clear heroes and villains, this movie lean into the idea of the anti-hero. The story is darker, more layered, and emotionally complex. It explores ambition, identity, and rebellion in a way that feel more mature and grounded. For viewers who are used to straightforward storytelling, this shift in tone make Cruella a fascinating subject to analyze. Now consider the director Craig Gillespie. His approach to storytelling is one of the key reasons the film feels so unique. Gillespie is known for creating character-driven narrative, and here he brings that strength into a big-budget Disney production. Instead of focusing purely on spectacle, he takes time to develop the protagonist's inner conflict. The transformation of Estella into Cruella is not rushed, it unfolds gradually, allowing the audience to understand her motivation and emotional struggle. This careful pacing invites deeper discussion about character psychology and moral ambiguity. Moving on to the production style, this is where Cruella truly shine and demand attention. The film is set in 1970s London, and the entire visual presentation reflect that era. From the gritty street to the high fashion runway, every detail is crafted with precision. The costume design, in particularly, is a major highlight. Each outfit tells a story symbolizing power, rebellion, and artistic expression. The fashion is not just decorative; it becomes a narrative tool that reflects the protagonist's evolution. The cinematography and soundtrack also play a huge role in shaping the film's identity. The camera work often feels dynamic and energetic, matching Cruella's bold personality. Meanwhile, the soundtrack, filled with classic rock song, create a rebellious, almost punk-like atmosphere. The combination of visual and music gives the movie a distinct style that separates it from typical Disney productions. Another reason this film is worth discussing is its tone. It walks a fine line between entertainment and deeper commentary. On one hand, it delivers humor, style, and dramatic moments that keep the audience engaged. On the other hand, it raises questions about ambition, power, and the cost of success. This duality make it suitable for both casual viewers and those looking for a more thoughtful cinematic experience. Finally, Cruella stand out because it redefines a classic character. Cruella de Vil, instead of presenting her as a one-dimensional, the films explore her origin, her pain, and her drive. This layered portrayal invites viewers to reconsider what makes someone good or evil. It opens the doors for meaningful discussion about morality and perspective. Cruella 2021 is worth discussing because it goes beyond expectation through its genre blending narrative, the direction of Craig Gillespie, and its striking production style. The films create a rich and engaging experience. It's not just a movie you watch; it's a movie you think about, analyze, and revisit. Analyzing the production budget of the film provide a valuable insight into how large-scale studio film allocate resources to achieve both artistic and commercial goals. Produced by the Walt Disney Company, the film had an estimated budget of approximately 100 to $200 million, with most industry report placing it close to $200 million. This level of investment positions Cruella firmly within the category of high budget Hollywood production though it remains slightly below the scale of major superhero blockbuster. A significant portion of the budget was allocated to production design and costume development, which is central to the film's identity. Unlike many action driven films that prioritize visual effects, Cruella channels its resources into fashion as a storytelling device. The costume design, led by award winning designer, required the creation of dozens of elaborate outfits. These costumes are not merely aesthetic addition, they function as narrative elements that reflect character development and thematic progression. As a result, the film wardrobe budget alone was likely substantial, comparable to or exceeding that of other period drama. Another key area of spending was the recreation of 1970s London. The filmmaker invested heavily in set design, location shooting, and digital enhancement to authentically capture the era. This include detailed street environment, interior of fashion houses, and large-scale event sequence. While some scenes were limited in location, others require extensive set construction and post-production work to maintain historical accuracy. These elements contributed significantly to the overall budget, reflecting the film's commitment to visual authenticity. In terms of casting and talent, the films feature high profile actors such as Emma Stone and Emma Thompson. Showing such established performers typically require considerable financial investment, including salaries and contractual benefit. Additionally, director Graham Glames brings the industry credibility, which can also influence production cost. However, compared to the ensemble-driven blockbuster, Cruella maintain a relatively focused cast, which may have helped balance overall expenses. The film also allocated resources to music and licenses, particularly for its soundtrack, which featured numerous well-known songs from the 1990s and 1970s. Licensing popular track can be expensive, especially when they play a prominent role in shaping the film's tone and atmosphere. In Cruella, music is integral to the storytelling, reinforcing the rebellious and punk-inspired aesthetic. This makes soundtrack cost a notable component of the overall budget. When comparing Cruella to similar film, it occupies an interesting middle ground. Example: Disney other live action adaptation like Maleficent and Cinderella had budget of approximately $180 million and $95 million respectively. Cruella aligns more closely with Maleficent in terms of scale, but different in how its budget is distributed. While Maleficent invests heavily in fantasy visual effects, the film prioritizes practical design element, costume, and stylistic presentation. Additionally, compared to the superhero films from the Marvel Studios, which often exceed $200 million, the film demonstrates a more restrained use of CGI. Instead of relying on large-scale action sequences, it focuses on character-driven storytelling and artistic visual. This distinction highlights how budget allocation reflects genre priorities and audience expectation. It is also important to consider the film's release context. The film was launched during a period when the film industry was recovering from the global impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, its distribution strategy include both theatrical release and streaming via Disney Plus. This hybrid model may have influenced budget planning, particularly in terms of marketing and expected return on investment. The production budget of the film reflects carefully balanced approach to filmmaking. With an estimated cost near $200 million, the film allocates resources toward costume design, period accuracy, music, and talent, rather than relying solely on visual effects. When compared to the similar films, it stands out for its emphasis on style and character, demonstrated how financial investment can be tailored to support a unique creative vision. Understanding the genre and the mood of the film require looking beyond traditional labels, because this film deliberately blend multiple styles to create something distinctive. At its core, the film operates as a crime drama with strong elements of dark comedy and character study, but it also borrows from fashion films and psychological storytelling. This hybrid genre structure play a major role in shaping the film's overall atmosphere and emotional impact. The atmosphere of the film is one of its most striking features. Set in 1990 London, the movie creates a world that feels both gritty and glamorous at the same time. On one side, there are rough street, chaotic energy, and underground rebellion. On the other hand, there is the polished elite world of high fashion. This contrast defines the film's environment, reflect the internal conflict of the main character, Cruella de Vil. The city itself becomes a character shifting between dark alley and extravagant fashion shows, reinforcing the duality of Estella transformation into Cruella. The mood of Cruella lean heavily towards rebellious, stylish, and slightly chaotic, with an undercurrent of emotional tension. Unlike traditional Disney films that maintain a light and family friendly tone, this movie embraces a more mature and edge feel. There is a sense of defiance through the narrative driven by the protagonist's desire to challenge authority and redefine herself. At the same time, the film does not completely abandon humor. Its dark comedic element provide moment of relief, often through clever dialogue and exaggerated situation, which balance the intensity of the story. When examining the pacing, the film adopts a gradual, character driven rhythm rather than a fast paced, action heavy structure. The story takes its time to develop Stella's background, her struggle, and her transformation. This slower pacing allows the audience to connect with the character on a deeper level, understanding her motivations and emotional journey. However, the film also includes bursts of energy, particularly during fashion show sequence and confrontation that keep the narrative engaging. These moments of heightened intensity are carefully placed, preventing the film from feeling monotonous while still maintaining its overall focus on character development. The tone of the film is complex and layered. It balances darkness and playfulness, seriousness and style. Character Craig Gillespie uses this tonal contrast to keep the audience intrigued. One moment the film explores themes of loss, revenge, and identity. The next, it presents visually extravagant scenes filled with bold fashion and theatrical flair. This shifting tone mirrors the protagonist's dual personality, Estella vulnerability versus Cruella boldness, making the narrative feel dynamic and unpredictable. Stylistically, Cruella stands out for its bold visual and musical choices. The costume design is central to the film's identity, with each outfit acting as a statement of rebellion and creativity. The fashion sequences are not just visually appealing, they contribute directly to the storytelling by showcasing Cruella's rise in the fashion world. In addition, the film use of music, particularly classic rock track, enhances rebellious mood. The soundtrack creates a rhythmic flow that supports both the pacing and the emotional tone of the story. Cinematography also plays a crucial role in establishing the film's mood. The camera work often feel energetic and expressive, using movement and framing to highlight both the chaos and the elegance of the film. Lighting is used strategically to emphasize contrast, such as the darker tone of Estella's struggle versus the bright, dramatic presentation of the Cruella fashion movement. In conclusion, the film is a genre blending film that combines crime drama, dark comedy, and character study into a cohesive experience. Its mood is defined by rebellion, style, and the emotional complexity, while its atmosphere, pacing, tone, and stylistic choices work together to create a film that feels both unique and memorable. Before watching the film, audience expectations were shaped by several key factors, including Disney reputations, familiarity with the iconic character Cruella de Vil, and the film's marketing has a stylish origin story. These expectations vary across different viewers' demographic, anticipated themes, and genre preferences, making the film an interesting case study in how the audience approach modern reimaging from a viewer's demographic perspective. Disney films traditionally attract family audience, including children, teenagers, and parents. The film signals early on that it was targeting a slightly older demographic. The darker tone Edgy fashion aesthetic and emphasis on character psychology suggested that the film would appeal more strongly to young adult and mature viewers rather than very young children. Fans of actress Emma Stone also contributed to expectation as her involvement imply a performance driven film with emotional depth and charisma. At the same time, long-time Disney fans brought their own expectation based on earlier portrayal of Cruella, particularly from 101 Dalmatians at its live-action adaptation. Many viewers expected to see the origin of a classic villains, including hints of the cruelty and the obsession associated with the character. However, there was also curiosity about how Disney would reinterpret such a controversial figure for modern audience. Would the film justify her actions, soften her personality, or present her as an anti-hero? These questions shape pre-viewing assumption and added an element of intrigue. Looking at anticipated themes, audience expected a story centered on identity, transformation, and ambition. The marketing emphasizes Stella's journey into becoming Cruella, suggesting a narrative about self-discovery and the acceptance of one darker side. Viewers also anticipated themes of rebellion against authority, particularly through the characters' rivalry with the Baroness, the fashion industry setting, hinting at deeper commentary on power, creativity, and competition, leading audience to expect a film that goes beyond a simple origin story. Additionally, given the film's release during a period influenced by the COVID 19 pandemic, audience expectations were also shaped by changing viewing habits. Many viewers approach Cruella as both a theatrical experience and a streaming option, expecting high production quality that justifies big budget status. This dual release strategy increased anticipation as audience expected a film that would deliver cinematic spectacle even when watched at home. From the perspective of the genre, fan expectation was particularly diverse. Fans of crime dramas anticipated a narrative including scheme, rivalries, and the strategic conflict. Those who enjoy dark comedies expected by witty dialogue, ironic situation, and a slightly exaggerated tone. Meanwhile, viewers interested in fashion and design look forward to visually striking costume and creative presentation. This overlap of genre meant that Cruella had to meet multiple sets of expectations simultaneously. Another important factor was the involvement of director Craig Gillespie. Audience familiar with his previous work expected a character focused approach with a balance of humor and emotional depth. This raised expectation for a film that prioritized storytelling and a performance over pure spectacle. Combined with Disney production capability, this created anticipation for a movie that would be both visually impressive and narratively engaging. Music also play a role in shaping expectation. The promotional material highlighted a soundtrack filled with classic songs, leading audience to anticipate a film with a strong musical identity. This suggests an energetic and immersive experience, particularly for viewers who enjoy films where music enhances storytelling. However, expectations were not without skepticism. Some viewers questioned whether the film could successfully justify a villain's backstory without undetermining the original character. Others wonder if the blend of dark theme and Disney branding would feel consistent or conflicted. This mixed expectation added another layer to the viewing experience as audience entered the film with both excitement and uncertainty. In conclusion, audience expectation for the film was shaped by a combination of demographic, thematic anticipation, and genre preferences. Family audience expected a Disney style production with a twist. Young adult anticipated a darker and more stylish narrative, and genre fan looked forward to a blend of crime, comedy, and drama. These varied expectations highlight the film's broad appeal and the challenge of satisfying multiple audience groups within a single cinematic experience. Understanding the target audience of the film require looking at how the film positions itself in terms of tone, style, and storytelling. While it is produced by the Walt Disney Company, which is traditionally associated with family-friendly content, Cruella earlier aimed for a more specific and slightly mature audience segment. The film's darker theme, stylized presentation, and character-driven narrative indicate that it is not designed primarily for the very young viewers, but rather for a broad and more nuanced demographic. Starting with the age group, Cruella is best suited for teenager and adult, generally ranging from age 13 and above. The film carries a more complex emotional tone compared to typical Disney production, including themes of loss, revenge, ambition, and identity. While there is no extreme content, the psychological depth and morally ambiguous protagonist may be difficult for young children to fully understand or relate to. Teenagers, on the other hand, are more likely to connect with the character's struggle for identity and self expression. Adults can appreciate the film's on an even deeper level, particularly in terms of its social commentary and character development. In terms of interest, the movie strongly appealed to viewers who enjoy fashion, art, and creative expression. One of the defining features of Cruella is its emphasis on costume design and visual storytelling. Audience who are interested in style, design, or the fashion industry will find the film particularly engaging as it uses clothing not just as decoration but as a key narrative tool. Each outfit reflects the protagonist's personality and evaluation, making the films visually rich and symbolically layered. Additionally, the film is well suited for viewers who appreciate character driven stories. Unlike action heavy blockbuster, Cruella focuses on the psychological transformation of its main character, Cruella de Vil. This makes it appealing to audience who enjoy exploring motivations, inner conflict, and moral ambiguity. Fans of actress Emma Stone are also a key part of the target audience, as her performance is central to the film's appeal and success. When considering genre preferences, Cruella target viewers who enjoy a mix of crime drama, dark comedy, and stylized storytelling. Fans of crime narrative will appreciate the scheme. Now, rivalries and the strategic element present in the story. Those who enjoy dark humor will find moments of wit and irony that had a layer of entertainment without undermining the seriousness of the plot. At the same time, viewers who are drawn to visually distinctive films, those that emphasize mood, music, and design, will find Cruella particularly satisfying. The film also appealed to audiences who enjoy anti-hero narrative. In recent years, there has been a growing interest in stories that explore the origin and motivation of traditionally villainous characters. Cruella fits into this trend by presenting a more humanized and relatable version of its central figure. This makes it attractive to viewers who prefer complex characters over clear-cut heroes and the villains. Another important segment of the target audience include fans of Disney reinterpretations. Viewers familiar with earlier adaptations such as 101 Dalmatians may be drawn to Cruella out of curiosity to see how the character's backstory is reimaged. However, the film is also designed to stand on its own, making it accessible to those who have little or no prior knowledge of the original story. It is also worth noting that Cruella appealed to viewers who enjoy strong female lead narrative. The film centers on two powerful female characters whose rivalry drive the plot, offering a dynamic and engaging story. This focus on female ambition, creativity, and conflict broaden its appeal to audience looking for representation and depth in character relationship. However, the film may be less suitable for character viewers, younger children who prefer light, straightforward story may find the tone too intense or complex. Similarly, viewers who expect a traditional Disney experience filled with clear moral lesson and simple narrative might find Cruella darker and more ambiguous approach less satisfying. In conclusion, the film is made for a teen and adult audience with interest in fashions, character-driven storytelling, and genre-blending narrative. It appeals particularly to fans of crime drama, dark comedy, and anti-hero story, while also viewers who appreciate visually stylish films and strong performances. By targeting this specific audience, the film successfully distinguishes itself from traditional Disney offering and create a more mature, engaging cinematic experience. The emotional experience promises by the film is layered, dynamic, and deliberately complex. Unlike traditional Disney narrative that often aim for clear emotional cues such as simple joy, sadness, or dread, this film offers a more nuanced emotion journey shaped by mood, theme, and its intended psychological impact on the viewer. It is not just about making the audience feel, it is about making them question, reflect, and engage with the character in a world. Starting with the mood, Cruella establishes a tone that is both stylish and emotionally charged. There is a persistent sense of rebellion running through the film, giving it an energetic and sometimes chaotic atmosphere. This rebellious mood is balanced by moment of vulnerability, particularly as the protagonist Cruella de Vil confront her past and her identity. The films move between emotional highs and lows, creating a rhythm that keeps the audience engaged. At times, the mood feel empowering, especially during scenes where Cruella asserts her individuality and challenges authority. At other moments, it becomes darker and more introspective, reflecting her internal struggle. The film's theme also play a crucial role in shaping its emotional depth. One of the central themes is identity explored through the duality of Estella and the Cruella. This internal conflict creates an emotional tension that resonates with viewers, particularly those who have experienced the challenges of balancing different aspects of their personality. The film invites the audience to emphasize with this struggle, making the emotional experience more personal and relatable. Another significant theme is loss and trauma. Early event in the story establishing an emotion foundation that influence the protagonist's action and decision. These elements add weight to the narrative, ensuring that the character transformation is not just dramatic but also emotionally grounded. The audience is encouraged to understand, not necessarily justify, cruel choices, which create a sense of emotional complexity rather than simple sympathy or rejection. The theme of revenge versus self discovery further shape the emotional journey, while the story include elements of revenge gradually shift toward a deeper exploration of self acceptance and empowerment. This transition affects how the audience feel about the character over time. Initially, viewers may respond with curiosity or concern, but as the narrative progress, these feelings evolve into a mix of admiration, tension, and reflection. In terms of intended impact, Cruella aimed to leave a lasting impression rather than deliver straightforward emotional payoff. The film encourages viewers to think about the nature of ambition, creativity, and individuality. It presents success not as a purely positive outcome but as something that can come with emotional cost. This approach creates a more mature and thought provoking experience, appealing to audience who appreciate films that go beyond surface level storytelling. The presence so strong performance, particularly by Emma Stone, enhances the emotional connection. Her portrait add depth and authenticity to the character, allow the audience to experience both her confidence and her vulnerability. This duality is essential to the film's emotional impact as it prevents the character from feeling one dimensional. The film also uses visual and musical element to amplify its emotional tone. The bold costume design and dramatic fashion sequence create a sense of excitement and empowerment, while the soundtrack, filled with energetic and rebellious music, reinforces the film's mood. These stylistic choices do more than entertain, they shape how the audience feel in each moment, guiding their emotional response without relying solely on dialogue. Importantly, Cruella does not aim to provide a completely confronting emotional experience. Instead, it embraces ambiguity and tension, leaving room for interpretation. Viewers may find themselves conflicted about the protagonist's action or unsure about how to feel at certain point. This intentional complexity is a part of the film's appeal, as it reflects real life emotional experience which are rarely simple or clear cut. In conclusion, the emotional experience of the film is defined by its rebellious mood, layered theme, and thought provoking impact. It offers a journey that is at once entertaining and introspective, combining moment of empowerment with deeper emotional reflection. By focusing on identity, loss, and self expression, the film creates an experience that resonates with the audience on multiple levels, making it both engaging and memorable. At its core, Cruella is not simply an original story of a well known character like Cruella de Vil, but rather an exploration of identity as a constructed and contested space. The film operates on an abstract level where the boundaries between self and persona, authenticity and performance are constantly shifting. It presents identity not as something fixed, but as something shaped through conflict, environment, and conscious reinvention. The central story concept revolves around the transformation of an individual who exists between two opposing forces, order and chaos, conformity and rebellion, vulnerability and dominance. Estella, as a conceptual figure, represents the socially acceptable, self disciplined, creative, and striving for reconciliation with an established system. In contrast, Cruella emerges as a manifestation of suppressed impulses, bold, disruptive, and unconcerned with approval. The narrative does not treat these as a separate in entities but as an intertwined dimension of a single consciousness. This duality becomes the foundation upon which the films build its philosophical injury. From a thematic perspective, one of the most significant ideas is the construction of identity through opposition. The protagonist does not discover where she is in isolation, rather, her sense of self is defined in reaction to external forces, particularly system of power and authority. The presence of a dominant figure, the Baroness, serves as both a mirror and a catalyst. Through this dynamic, the film suggests that identity is often forged in resistance, shaped by one refuse to become as much as by what one choose to embrace. Another key theme is the relationship between creativity and destruction. In Crayola, artistic expression is not portrayed as purely constructed or harmonious. Instead, it is depicted as something that can disrupt, challenge, and even destabilize existing structures. Fashion, as the film's primarily medium of expression, become a symbolic language through which the protagonist asserts her presence. Each creation is both an act of self-definition and a confrontation with the world around her. This framing position creativity as a force that is inherently tied to risk and transgression. The film also engages with the theme of power as performance. Power in this narrative is not simply held, it is displayed, enacted, and continually reinforced through spectacle. The transformation into Cruella, in many ways, a performance, a deliberate construction of an identity designed to command attention and influence perception. This idea aligned with the film's stylized aesthetic, where visual presentation becomes inseparable from narrative meaning. The character's rise is not just about gaining control but about mastering the art of being seen. At a deeper level, Cruella explored the tension between authenticity and artifice. The protagonist's journey raises the question of whether he embraces a constructed persona is a form of liberation or a loss of the true self. The film does not offer a definitive answer. Instead, it suggests that authenticity itself may be a fluid concept. By adopting the identity of Cruella, the character does not necessarily abandon her original self but reconfigures it, blending elements of both personas into a new, more complex identity. This ambiguity is central to the film's message, emphasizing that selfhood is not a singular, stable entity but an evolving process. The message of the films can be interpreted as a meditation on self acceptance through integration rather than rejection, rather than framing the darker aspect of the self as something to be suppressed. Cruella present them as an integral component of the identity. The protagonist's journey is not about choosing between Estella and Cruella, but about reconciling these opposing forces. This perspective challenges traditional moral framework that categorize trait as strictly good or bad, suggesting instead that complexity is an essential aspect of human experience. Additionally, the film touches on the idea of inheritance, both psychological and social. The protagonist's identity is influenced by her past, her environment, about the legacy of those who came before her. However, the narrative emphasizes the possibility of redefining that inheritance. Identity, in this sense, is not merely received but actively reshaped. This reinforced the film's broader theme of agency, highlighting the capacity to transform oneself despite external constraint. The story also operates as a critique of hierarchical systems and the illusion of meritocracy. The fashion world depicted in the film serves as a microcosm of larger social structure where power is constructed and access is limited. The protagonist rise challenges this structure, exposes their arbitrariness and exclusivity. Through this lens, the film suggests that success is not solely determined by talent or effort, but also by one's ability to navigate and disrupt existing system. In abstract terms, Cruella can be seen as a narrative about becoming through contradiction. The protagonist does not achieve clarity by resolving her internal conflict, but by embracing them. This approach reflects a broader psychological idea that identity is not a destination but a continuous negotiation between competing forces. The film invites the audience to consider the possibility that what is often labeled as a darkness may in fact as a source of strength and creativity when understood and integrated. The core idea of the film lies in its exploration of identity as a dynamic and multifaceted construct through its theme of duality, creativity, power, and self acceptance. The film presents a story concept that transcends its narrative framework. It becomes an abstract reflection on what it means to define oneself in a world shaped by expectation, limitation, and the constant interplay between who we are and who we choose to become. At the heart of Cruella lies a central conflict that operates less as a single external struggle and more as a multi layered tension between identity, morality, and power. Rather than focusing on isolated events, the film builds its narrative around a continuous internal and external opposition that shape the journey of its central figure, Cruella de Vil. This conflict is best understood as an ongoing negotiation between competing forces within the self and within society. The most prominent layer of this conflict is the moral dilemma of self definition. The protagonist exists between two contrasting impulses, one that seeks acceptance, stability, and connection, and the other that embraced rebellion, dominance, and independence. These opposing drives are not easily reconciled. The tension arises from the question of whether one must suppress certain aspect of the self to function within societal norms, or whether true fulfillment required the full expression of all impulses regardless of consequence. This dilemma is not framed in simple moral terms. Instead, it challenges the audience to consider whether good and bad trait can coexist within a single identity without cancelling each other out. Closely tied to this is the challenge of authenticity versus performance. The film presents identity as something that can be both genuine and constructed. The protagonist must navigate the tension between being true to an inner sense of self and adopting a persona that allow for survival and success within a competitive environment. This creates a persistent conflict. Is the constructed identity a mask that distance the individual from their true nature, or is it a legitimate extension of who they are? The inability to clearly separate these possibilities generate an ongoing psychological strain, as each choice carries implication for both personal integrity and external perception. Another key dimension of the central conflict is the struggle for power within hierarchical system. The narrative situates the protagonist in a world where authority is constructed and controlled by established figures. This creates a structural tension between those who hold power and those who seek a challenge it. The conflict is not only about gaining influence but also about redefining the role by which power operates. This introduces a moral ambiguity in attempting to dismantle an unjust system. The protagonist risks adopting the same behavior and strategy that define that system. The question that becomes whether it is possible to challenge power without becoming complicit in its dynamic. The film also explores the emotional tension between attachment and independence. Human connection provides support, stability, and meaning, yet they can also impose limitations and expectations. The protagonist must confront the challenging of balancing personal ambition with loyalty and emotional bonds. This creates a subtitle but persistent conflict. Pursuing individual goals may require distancing oneself from others, while maintaining those relationships may demand compromise. The emotional weight of this tension adds depth to the narrative as it reflects a universal human experience. In addition, there is a conflict between control and chaos that underpin the film's thematic structure. Order represents predictability, discipline, and adherence to established norm, while chaos embodies creativity, disruption, and transformation. The protagonist is drawn to both forces, experiencing them not as opposite but as interconnecting aspects of existence. The tension rises from the difficulty of maintaining balance. Too much control can lead to suppression and stagnation, while too much chaos can result in instability and loss of direction. The central conflict, therefore, involves navigating this deliberate equilibrium without losing a sense of purpose. The moral complexity of the film is further intensified by the presence of clear ethical boundaries. Action can't be easily categorized as entirely right or wrong, as they are often driven by a mixture of intention, emotion, and circumstances. This ambiguity forces both the protagonist and the audience to engage with difficult questions. To what extent do past experience justify present behavior? Is ambition inherently self serving, or can it coexist with empathy? These unresolved questions contribute to the film's enduring tension as they resist simple answer. Another important aspect of the central conflict is the pressure of expectation versus the desire for self-determination. Society imposes role, label, and limitation that define how the individuals are perceived and what is considered acceptable. The protagonist's journey involves resisting these constraints and asserting the right to define oneself on its own terms. However, this resistance is not without consequence. Breaking away from expectation can lead to isolation, misunderstanding, or conflict with others. This creates a tension between the need for autonomy and the self desire for recognition and belonging. Furthermore, the film engages with the idea of transformation as both empowerment and risk. Change is portrayed as necessary for growth, but it also carries the potential for loss of identity, relationship, or moral grounding. The protagonist evaluation is therefore marked by uncertainty as each step forward introduces new challenges and raises new questions. This ongoing process of becoming is central to the film's conflict, emphasizing that transformation is not a linear or entirely positive experience. In abstract terms, the central conflict of this film can be understood as a struggle to reconcile opposing forces within a single identity while navigating external system of power and expectation. It is a conflict that does not seek resolution in the traditional sense but instead remain open-ended, reflecting the complexity of real life moral and psychological dilemmas. The film's central conflict is defined by interwoven layer of moral dilemmas, personal challenges, and sustained tension. By focusing on identity, power, and the balance between opposing forces, Cruella presents a narrative that is both external resolution and moral about internal negotiation. This makes the conflict not by compiling but also deeply reflective of broader human experience. The film explores a wide range of themes that operate on ethical, emotional, and cultural levels. Rather than presenting a straightforward narrative, the film builds a layered thematic structure that invites reflection on identity, morality, power, and creative expression. These themes are interconnected, shaping both the emotional echoes of the character and the broader message of the story. One of the most prominent themes is identity and self-construction. The journey of Cruella de Vil represent the idea that identity is not fixed but constant evolving. The film raises an important ethical question: is a person defined by their past or by the choices they make moving forward? This theme is explored through an emotional arc that moves from uncertainty and inner conflict toward a form of self acceptance. However, this acceptance is not simple or entirely positive. It involves embracing both strength and darker impulses. This film suggests that identity is shaped through tension rather than harmony, making it a complex and ongoing process. Closely related to identity is the theme of duality and internal conflict. The protagonist embodies two contrasting aspects of personality, one aligned with social norms, another driven by rebellion and ambition. This duality raises ethical question about the nature of morality. Can opposing traits coexist without one invalidating the other? The emotional arc here is defined by struggle and negotiation as the character attempt to reconcile these internal forces. These themes resonate with audience because it reflects a universal human experience, the challenge of balancing different aspects of life. Another significant theme is power and control, particularly with the hierarchical system. The film portrays a world where authority is concentrated in the hands of a few, creating an environment of competition and exclusion. This introduces ethical questions about the legitimacy of power. Is authority earned through talent and effort or maintained through dominance and manipulation? The protagonist's journey highlights the tension between challenge such system and becoming part of them. Emotionally, this theme is expressed through ambition, frustration, and the desire for recognition. It also reflects broader cultural discussion about inequality and access to opportunity. The theme of revenge versus justice play a crucial role in shaping the narrative. While the desire for revenge can be understood as a response to past harm, the film questions whether it lead to meaningful resolution. This creates a moral dilemma. Does seeking revenge provide closure, and does it perpetuate cycle of conflict? The emotional arc associated with this theme is complex, moving from anger and determination to moment of interception. The film does not present a clear answer, instead of leaving the audience to consider the consequence of such motivation. Creativity and artistic expression from another central theme, particularly through the film focus on fashion. Creativity is portrayed as both empowering and disrupting, challenging established norms and redefining boundaries. This raises ethical question about originality and influence. Is true creativity about innovation or about transforming existing ideas? The emotional aspect of this theme is tied to passion, ambition, and the desire to be seen and understood. On a cultural level, it reflects the role of art in shaping identity and challenging societal expectation. The film also explores the theme of belonging versus individuality. Human beings naturally seek connection and acceptance, yet individuality often requires standing apart from others. This creates a tension between fitting in and asserting one's uniqueness. The ethical question here is how much should one compromise personal identity for the sake of belonging? The emotional arc involves moments of isolation, loyalty, and self-realization, highlighting the cost and value of both choices. This theme is particularly relevant in contemporary culture, where individuality is celebrating but social acceptance remain important. Another important theme is inheritance and influence, both in a personal and cultural sense. The protagonist's identity is shaped by past experience and external influence, raising the question to what extent are individuals responsible for overcoming their circumstances. This theme connects to broader cultural discussion about privilege, environment, and personal agency. Emotionality is expressed through conflict, realization, and the desire to redefine one's path. The film also engaged with female empowerment and rivalry, presenting complex female characters whose ambition drive the narrative. This theme challenges traditional portrayal of women in cinema, offering a more nuanced dissipation of strength, ambition, and competition. The ethical dimension involves question about how power is exercised, whether success must come at the expense of other emotionally. This theme is characterized by tension, respect, and confrontation, reflecting the complexity of human relationships. Finally, Cruella explores the theme of transformation and reinvention. Change is presenting as both necessary and risky, involving the possibility of growth as well as loss. The ethical question here is, does transformation lead to a more authentic self or does it create distance from one's origin? The emotional arc is one of uncertainty and evaluation, emphasizing the personal growth is rarely straightforward. This theme resonates with audience because it reflects the challenge of adopting to new circumstances while maintaining a sense of identity. Cruella explores a rich array of themes that intervene ethical question, emotional arc, and cultural topic through its focus on identity, power, and creativity and transformation. The film offers a narrative that is both entertaining and thought-provoking. By presenting complex character and moral ambiguity, it encourages viewers to engage with its theme on a deeper level, making it compelling subject for discussion and analysis. The emotional connection that the film builds with its audience is not immediate or simplistic. Further, rather it develops gradually through a carefully constructed blend of mood, theme, and viewer experience. The film does not rely solely on traditional emotional trigger such as clear-cut empathy or straightforward heroism. Instead, it engages viewers through emotional complexity, inviting viewer to connect with a character who exists in a normally ambiguous space. Cruella de Vil. Starting with mood, the film establishes an atmosphere that is both stylish and emotionally charged, which play a crucial role in shaping the viewer's connection. The rebellious tone, supported by energetic visuals and music, creates an immediate sense of excitement and intrigue. This mood draws viewers, making them curious about the character and her journey. However, beneath the surface level energy lies a deeper emotional layer. Moment of vulnerability introspection shift the mood into something more reflective, allowing the audience to engage with the character's internal struggle. This balance between boldness and sensitivity ensure that the emotional connection is dynamic rather than static. The film's themes further strengthen this connection by addressing universal human experience. One of the most impactful themes is identity and self-discovery. Many viewers can relate to the feelings of being torn between different aspects of themselves, trying to reconcile who they are with who they are expected to be. This internal conflict is central to the protagonist's journey, making her struggle feel familiar even when her actions are extreme. The film does not present identity as a simple or a fixed concept. Instead, it portrays something fluid and evolving. This resonates with audience who have experienced change, uncertainty, or personal growth in their own lives. Another theme that enhances emotional engagement is the search for recognition and validation. The desire to be seen, acknowledged, and appreciated is a deeply human need, and the film captured this through its narrative. The viewers are drawn into the protagonist's ambition and determination, understanding the emotional drive behind her action. Even when these actions become questionable, the underlying motivation remain relatable. This creates a complex emotional response where viewers may feel both admiration and discomfort at the same time. The theme of loss and emotional hardship also play a significant role in building connection without focusing on specific event. It's clear that the protagonist's past experience shape her present behavior. This add emotional depth as viewers can sense the weight of those experiences and how they influence her choices. The film encourages empathy not by justifying every action but by providing context. This allows the audience to see the character as more than just her outward persona. From the perspective of viewer experience, Cruella engages emotions through a combination of storytelling technique and stylistic elements. The use of fashion, for example, is not merely visual, it becomes an emotional language. Each design and presentation reflect the character's state of mind, allowing the viewers to feel her transformation without relying entirely on dialogue. This visual storytelling creates a more immersive experience where emotions are communicated through imaginary as well as narrative. Music also play a key role in shaping the emotional experience. The soundtrack, filled with energetic and expressive track, amplify the film's mood and help guide the audience emotional response. Certain moments feel empowering while others carry a sense of passion or reflection depending on how the music interact with the same. This integration of sound and story enhances the overall connection, making the emotional journey more impactful. Another important aspect of the emotional connection is the film's use of ambiguity. Unlike traditional narratives that clearly define how the audience should feel, Cruella allow for multiple interpretation. Viewers are not told exactly what to emphasize or judge. Instead, they are given space to form their own emotional response. This approach can be challenging, but it also makes the experience more engaging. By requiring active emotional participation, the film creates a deeper and more personal connection. The performance of Emma Stone further strengthened this mood. Her portrayal captured both the confidence and vulnerability of the character, making her feel authentic and multidimensional. This authenticity is essential for emotional connection as it allows viewers to believe in the character's journey and invest in her story. Importantly, the film does not aim to provide a completely comfortable emotional experience. Instead, it embraces tension and contradiction, reflecting the complexity of real life emotion. Viewers may find themselves conflicted, unsure whether to fully support or question the protagonist. This emotional uncertainty is intentionally encouraging deeper reflection and engagement. In conclusion, the emotional connection in Cruella is built through its layered mood, relatable theme, and immersive viewer experience. By combining style with substances and ambiguity with emotional depth, the films create a connection that goes beyond simple entertainment. It invites viewers to explore their own feelings about identity, ambition, and morality, making the experience both engaging and thought provoking. The film presents a character driven narrative where personalities and internal conflict take center stage. From a reviewer perspective, the film's strength lie in how it built its main character through layered traits, archetype roles, and evolving emotional depth rather than relying purely on plot progression. At the core of the story is Cruella de Vil, portrayed by Emma Stone, who represent a complex blend of contrasting archetypes. She embodies both the outsider genius and the rebellious anti-hero, making her one of the more psychologically engaging characters in modern Disney storytelling. Her personality is defined by intelligence, creativity, and ambition, but also by emotional instability and desire for recognition. What makes her particularly compelling is the internal duality she carries. On one side, there is restraint, discipline, and a need to belong. On the other, there is a boldness, defiance, and a willingness to disrupt norms. This dual nature create a continuous tension that drive her development and keep the audience engaged. From a critical viewpoint, her transformation is less about becoming someone new and more about embracing a fuller, more unapologetic version of herself. Opposing her is the Baroness, played by Emma Thompson, who fits the archetype of the dominant authority figure. Her personality is marked by control, precision, and an almost absolute confidence in her superiority. She represents a rigid system of power that values perfection and dominance over empathy. As a reviewer, one can see her less as a deeply evolving character and more as a symbolic prison. She is the embodiment of hierarchy and control, serving as a constant force against which the protagonist defines herself. This lack of flexibility in her character actually strengthens the narrative contrast as it highlights the protagonist's fluidity and capacity for change. The sporting characters Jasper and Horace fall into the archetypal of lone companion, but they are more than simple side figures. They provide emotional grounding and serve as a reminding of the protagonist's human connection. Jasper in particularly displayed traits such as loyalty, thoughtfulness, and a sense of moral awareness. He often reflects the emotional consequence of the protagonist's choice, offering a quieter, more reflective counterbalance to her intensity. Horace, meanwhile, brings a lighter presence characterized by humor and simplicity, yet his loyalty remains consistent. Together, these characters create a sense of stability within an otherwise volatile narrative. What stands out in the film is how these personalities interact to create layered tension. The dynamic between the protagonist and the Baroness is not merely oppositional but ideological. One thrives on disruption and reinvention, while the other depends on control and tradition. This clash of archetypes create a narrative that feels less like a simple conflict and more like a philosophical confrontation between two ways of existing. At the same time, the relationship between the protagonist and the other companion introduce a more emotional form of tension rooted in trust, loyalty, and the fear of losing connection. From a reviewer's standpoint, the film succeeds largely because of its central performance and the depth given to its main character. Emma Stone's deliver a portrayal that captures both vulnerability and confidence, allow the audience to connect with a character who might otherwise feel distant or morally ambiguous. The supporting cast reinforce this by providing contrast through they do not undergo the same level of development. However, the reliance on strong archetype does not come with limitation. Certain characters remain relatively static, functioning more as narrative tool than fully realized individual. This can create an imbalance where the central figure feel richly developed while the others serve primarily to highlight her journey. Despite this, the overall character structure remain effective as it supports the film's thematic focus on identity, power, and transformation. In a sense, the character in Cruella 2021 operate as both individual and symbolic figure. Their personality shaped by ambition, control, and loyalty and rebellion contribute to a narrative that is as much about internal evaluation as it is about external conflict. The figure emphasizes on duality and contrast, ensure that its character remain engaging, offering a study in how identity can be both constructed and revealed through tension and opposition. The film relies heavily on performance to carry its emotional weight, and from a reviewer perspective, the acting is one of the most defining. The film is less about what happened and more about how it feels, and that emotional tension is largely shaped by the commitment and the presence of its cast. At the center is Emma Stone, whose performance anchored the entire performance. She brings a layer intensity that feels both controlled and unpredictable at the same time. What stands out most is her ability to shift between emotional state without losing coherence. There is a constant sense of tension in her performance at a different side of the character, always competing for control. This creates an emotional pull that keeps the viewer engaged even in quieter moments. Her expression, voice modulation, and physical presence all contribute to a portrayal that feels deeply internal as well as outwardly expressive. She does not simply play a role; she embodies a transformation in a way that feels immersive and believable. Emotionally, her performance captures a wide spectrum, confidence, ability, deficiency, and isolation without reducing any of these feeling to something simplistic. There is a certain theatricality in her delivery, but it never feels excessive. Instead, it aligns with the film's stylized tone, making her performance feel both grounding and heightened at the same time. From a critical standpoint, this balance is difficult to achieve, and it is one of the reasons her portrait resonates so strongly. Alongside Emma Thompson deliver a performance that is equally compelling through in a very different way, where Stone's performance is fluid and emotionally layered. Thompson is sharp, control, and deliberate restraint. She executes authority through minimalism, using subtitle gestures and precise delivery to create a sense of dominance. Her presence carries a certain emotional distance which enhances the tension between characters without requiring over dramatic. This contrast in acting style creates a dynamic that feels both engaging and thematically consistent. The supporting cast play a crucial role in shaping the film's emotional environment. The actors portraying a close companion bring a sense of warmth and relatability that balances the intensity of the central performances. Their acting feels more naturalistic, grounding in everyday emotional responses, which provides a contrast to the more stylized approach of the lead role. This difference in tone is important because it prevents the film from becoming emotionally overwhelming or one-dimensional. In terms of chemistry, the interaction between the lead actor are naturally noteworthy. The emotional tension between Emma Stone and Emma Thompson is not built on overt confrontation alone, but on a deeper sense of opposition that is felt even in stillness. Their scenes carry an undercurrent of competition and control, which is communicated through eye contact, timing, and subtitle shift in tone. This creates a compiling dynamic that draw the viewer into their shared space without relying on exaggerated emotion. At the same time, the chemistry between the lead character and the supporting cast introduce a different emotional layer. There is a sense of familiarity and with the connection that feels genuine, showing the audience to experience moment of emotional grounding. Their interaction is softer, more relaxed, and often carry an unspoken understanding that contrasts with the tension present in their relationship. Their duality in chemistry add more depth to the overall viewing experience as it reflects different aspects of human connection. Another important aspect of the performance is how well they align with the film's stylistic choices. The acting does not exist in isolation, it works in harmony with the visual design, music, and pacing. The slightly exaggerated expression and confident delivery fit seamlessly into the film's bold aesthetic rather than feeling out of space. The performance enhanced the overall mood, making the film feel cohesive and intentional. Emotionally, the acting creates a sense of engagement that goes beyond simple empathy. The audience is not just asked to feel for the character but to experience their internal conflict and contradiction. This is achieved through subtitle detail, pauses in dialogue, changes in posture, and the way emotions are allowed to linger rather than resolve quickly. These elements make the performances feel authentic even in a stylized narrative. From a reviewer perspective, the acting in this film succeeds because it embraces complexity rather than avoiding it. The lead actor bring depth and contrast while the supporting cast provide balances and relatability together. They create an emotional landscape that feels rich, dynamic, and engaging. The chemistry between performer combined with their individual strength ensure that the film remain emotionally compelling from start to finish. This film approached realism and character depth in a way that does not rely on strict real world accuracy but instead focuses on emotional authenticity and psychological layering. From a reviewer perspective, the film succeeds not because it mirrored reality in a literal sense, but because it captured internal experience, identity, conflict, ambition, and transformation in a way that feels believable on a human level. When discussing character development, the film presents a gradual and evolving portrayal of its central figure, Cruella de Vil, rather than offering a sudden or simplified transformation. The narrative builds her personality through stages of tension and adaptation. This progression gives the character a sense of continuity, making her development feel earned rather than imposed. Each phase of her identity reflects a response to internal pressure, external expectation, which add to the overall. From a critical standpoint, this layer approach allows the audience to track not just what the character becomes, but why she becomes that way. What enhances development is the presence of contradiction within the character. She is neither entirely sympathetic nor entirely detached, which aligns with how real individuals often operate. This complexity prevents the character from falling into predictable patterns. Instead of following a traditional arc of growth or redemption, the film explores development as a process of integration, bringing together conflict, creating a cohesive identity. This makes the character feel more multidimensional, less constrained by conventional storytelling expectations. In terms of believability, the film operates within a stylized world, yet it maintains a sense of emotional truth. The setting, visual design, and heightened tone might not reflect everyday reality, but the character's motivation and reaction are grounding in recognizable human behavior. The desire for recognition, the struggle for control, and the need for self expression are all elements that resonate with real life experience. This grounding allows the audience to accept the more exaggerated aspect of the film without losing connection to the character. The believability is also strengthened by the performance, particularly that of Emma Stone, who bring a nuanced interpretation to the central role. Her ability to convey subtitle emotional shift add credibility to the character's journey. Even when the narrative lean into dramatic or stylized moment, her performance maintain a sense of internal logic. This consistency is crucial in making the character feel real within the film constructed environment. Another important aspect of realism is how the film handles relationship and interpersonal dynamic. The interaction between the character reflect a range of emotional response from loyalty and suspense, both to tension and conflict. These relationships are not static; they revolve alongside the character. Another important layer of depth. The presence of contrasting personality highlight different perspective, making the narrative feel more nuanced and grounded. The emotional range of the film is one of its strongest contribution to the character depth. Rather than limiting itself to a narrow set of emotion, Krillua explore a broad spectrum including confidence, vulnerability, frustration, ambition, and isolation. This range allows the audience to see the character from multiple angles, creating a more complete and realistic portrayal. These emotions are not always resolved neatly, which further enhance the sense of authenticity. Real life emotions are more complex and ongoing, and the film reflects this by allowing certain tension to remain unresolved. Additionally, the film uses emotional contrast to deepen its character. Moments of of depth are often paired with moment of doubt and expression of control are balanced by hint of instability. This interplay prevent the character from becoming one dimensional, keep the audience engaged. It also reinforces the idea that depth comes from internal conflict rather than external circumstances alone. From a reviewer perspective, one of the film's most notable achievement is its ability to create emotional realism within a stylized narrative framework. While the visual and thematic element may be heightened, the core emotional experience remains relatable. This balance is not easy to achieve, as overly stylized film can sometimes lose their sense of authenticity. However, Guerrilla managed to maintain this connection by focusing on the psychological and emotional aspect of this character. There are, however, some limitation to the realism. Certain supporting character may not receive the same level of development as a central figure, which can create an imbalance in depth. While they contribute to the narrative and provide contrast, their motivations and emotional journeys are less explored. This does not undetermine the overall effectiveness of the film, but it does highlight the strong emphasis placed on the protagonist's development. The film achieves a compelling sense of realism and depth through its focus on character development, emotional believability, and a wide emotional range. By prioritizing psychological complexity over literal realism, the film creates characters that feel authentic with their stylized work. The result is a narrative that resonates not because it mirrors reality exactly, but because it captures the essence of human experience in a thoughtful and engaging way. The film operates within the financial framework of a high-end studio production, and its budget reflects a careful, planned balance between visual style, talent investment, and control spectral. Industry estimate place the film production cost in the range of $100 million to $200 million, with many analyses suggesting a figure close to the $200 million. This positions the film in the upper tier of mid to large scale Hollywood production, though still largely below the budget typically associated with major superhero franchise. From an analytical standpoint, the cost range indicates that the film was designed to deliver a premium cinematic experience without relying entirely on expensive visual effects. Unlike large-scale action films that allocate a significant portion of their budget to CGI-heavy sequences, Cruella distributed resources across multiple creative departments. This approach reflects the film's emphasis on character, atmosphere, and design rather than spectacle alone. A major portion of the budget is directed toward production design and costume creations, which are central to the film's identity. The narrative is deeply tied to the world of fashion, and this required an extensive investment in wardrobe development. Dozens of intricate costumes are designed, produced, and integrated into the storytelling. There are not background elements, they function as key visual statements, which justify the high allocation of resources in this era. Compared to the standard drama, the costume budget in Cruella is significantly elevated, relying more closely with large-scale period production. Another key area of resource allocation is the recreation of the film setting. The depiction of 1970s London involved a combination of on-location shooting, constructed set, and digital enhancement. This hybrid approach ensures both authenticity and flexibility. Set construction and location management and shooting, constructed sets, and digital enhancement. The hybrid approach ensures both authenticity and flex. Set construction and location management contribute to logistical cost, while post-production enhancement help maintain visual consistency. The result is a stylized yet believable environment that supports the film's tone. Casting also represents a notable investment. The presence of established performers such as Emma Stone and Emma Thompson add both financial cost and market value. Lead actors' salaries, along with contractual agreement and production commitment form a significant portion of the budget. However, the film maintained a relatively focused cast, which helped prevent costs from escalating to the level seen in ensemble driven production. The film's music soundtrack are another area of expenditure. The inclusion of well-known songs from the 1960s and 1970s require licensing agreement, which can be costly depending on the prominence and the uses of each track. In Cruella, music is not accidental. It plays a structural role in shaping mood and pacing. This justifies the allocation of funds towards securing recognizable and impactful track. When comparing Cruella to the similar film, it occupies a distinct position. For example, Maleficent had a budget of approximately $180 million and rely heavily on fantasy element and visual effects. Similarly, Cinderella, with a budget closer to the $95 million, focus more on traditional storytelling and period aesthetic. Cruella sit between these models, combining stylistic design with character-driven narrative. Its budget reflects this hybrid identity, allocating for not only to visual but also to performance and atmosphere. In contrast to production from Marvel Studios, which often exceed $200 million and prioritize large-scale action sequence, Cruella demonstrate a more restrained use of visual effects. This allows resources to be redirected toward practical effects such as set design, costume, and performance-driven scenes. The result is a film that feels visually rich without depending on constant digital spectrum. It is also relevant to consider the film release context during the COVID-19 pandemic, which influenced distribution strategy and financial planning. The combination of theatrical and streaming release model may have affected how the budget was structured, particularly in terms of expected return and marketing investment. In conclusion, the production budget of the film reflects a strategic allocation of resources across design, talent, music, and setting. With an estimated cost nearing $200 million, the film prioritized style and character over large scale effect, distinguish itself from other high budget productions. Its financial structure demonstrates how a film can achieve visual and narrative impact through careful distribution of resources rather than reliance on a single dominant element. The film presents an interesting case when analyzing domestic box office performance, particularly within the context of its release periods and changing audience behavior. The North America region, the film earned approximately 85 to $90 million during its theatrical run. While this figure may appear moderate compared to pre-2020 blockbuster standard, it become more meaningful when placed within its broader context. The most important factor influencing domestic earning was the ongoing impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. During this period, theater attendance had not fully recovered, and many audiences were still hesitant to return to cinemas. Capacity restriction, healthy concern, and shifting viewing habits all contributed to reduce box office potential. As a result, even produced films with strong brand recognition face limitation in reaching traditional revenue reveals levels. Another key aspect of Cruella domestic performance was its simultaneous release strategy. The film was made available both in theaters and on the streaming platform Disney Plus through a premium access model. This hybrid approach significantly altered audience behavior. Many viewers who might have attended theaters instead choose to watch the films at home, particularly families or groups seeking convenience. While this strategy expanding accessibility and generating digital revenue, it also likely reduce overall theoretical earning in the domestic market. In terms of audience trend, Cruella attracted a slightly different demographic compared to the traditional Disney release. Rather than focusing primarily on young children and female, the films appeal more strongly to teenagers and adults, especially those interested in fashion, character-driven storytelling, and darker reinterpretation of familiar narrative. This shift in larger audience may have influenced box office pattern as older viewers are often more selective about theatrical viewings are more comfortable with streaming alternative. Additionally, the film benefited from strong word of mouth and critical discussion, which helped sustain its performance over time instead of relying on a massive opening weekend. Cruella demonstrated a steadier earning pattern, reflecting gradual audience interest. This type of performance is often associated with films that generates ongoing conservation rather than immediate mass appeal. When comparing Cruella to similar film, its domestic box office appeared more modest. For example, Maleficent earned over $240 million domestically, while Cinderella reached approximately $200 million. However, these films were released under normal theatrical conditions without streaming competition. In contrast, Cruella operated in a hybrid distribution environment, making direct comparison less straightforward. It is also useful to consider comparison with other pandemic era release. Many films during this time experienced reduced domestic earning during the same external factor. Within this context, Cruella performance can be seen as a relatively stable and consistent rather than underperforming. Its ability to attract audience despite limitations suggests a level of resilience in its appeal. From a financial analysis perspective, domestic box office is only one part of the overall revenue picture. The inclusion of streaming revenue through Disney Plus add another dimension that traditional box office figure do not capture. This shift reflects a broader industry trend where success is measured not only by theoretical earning but also by digital engagement and subscription growth. Another factor influencing domestic performance is the film's genre and tone. As a character-driven story with a darker and more stylized approach, Cruella does not align perfectly with the high-energy spectacle that typically drive large box office numbers. Instead, it appealed to a more niche segment of viewers who value style, performance, and thematic depth. This naturally resulted in a more moderated but steady level of audience turnout, including the domestic box office performance of the film. Approximately 85 to $90 million in North America should be understood within the context of its release environment, hybrid distribution model, and audience targeting. While lower than some comparable Disney film, its earning reflect broader industry change during the pandemic era. When combined with the streaming success and sustained audience interest, the film demonstrates how box office results can no longer be evaluated in isolation but must be viewed as a part of a larger evolving entertainment landscape. The film shows a more expensive picture when its international box office performance is analyzed separately from domestic results. Outside North America, the film earned approximately $140 to $150 million, bringing its worldwide total to over $230 million. While these numbers may appear moderate compared to the pre-dynamic blockbuster, they reflect a complex global market shaped by regional differences, audience reception, and marketing strategy. Looking first at the regional breakdown, the films perform most consistently in Europe and part of Asia Pacific, where audiences have traditionally responded well to visually stylized, character-driven film. Markets such as the United Kingdom, France, and the Italy show relatively stable engagement, likely due to the film's strong connection to the British culture and fashion. The London setting, combined with a distinctly European aesthetic, made the film feel culturally aligned with these audience, enhancing its appeal. In contrast, performance in some Asian market was more valuable, while countries like South Korea and Japan show moderate interest. The film did not reach the same level of success typically seen with action heavier franchise driven release, This reflects broader market preferences where high energy spectacle and fast-paced narrative and to dominate. The film, with its emphasis on style and character development, cater to a more specific audience segment which can limit its reach in certain region. Another critical factor shaping international learning was the continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many international markets faced staggered theater reopening, capacity restriction, or temporary closure during the first release window. These conditions directly affected box office potential, making it difficult for film to achieve traditional revenue level. As a result, the film international performance should be viewed in relation to these constraints rather than as a direct comparison to pre-2020 release. The film market reception vary depending on cultural context and audience expectations. In region where audience are more reciprocated to fashion design and character focused storytelling, the film generated positive management. The visual style, costume design, and strong lead performance contribute to its appeal, particularly among urban and younger audience. In contrast, viewers expected a more conventional Disney narrative or action-oriented film may have found the tone less aligned with their preferences. Marketing also play a significant role in shaping the international result. Backed by the Walt Disney Company, the film benefited from a global promotional campaign that emphasized its stylish identity and strong performance, particularly by Emma Stone. The marketing position the film as a bold interpretation but rather than a traditional remake, which help attract audience interested in something different from standard franchise offering. However, the effectiveness of marketing varied by region. In markets where Disney brand carries strong influence, promotional effort translated more directly into audience turnout. In other regions where local films or different genres dominate, the impact was more limited. Additionally, the simultaneous release on Disney Plus in several countries affected theatrical attendance. Viewers with access to the platform had the option to watch the film at home, reducing reliance on cinema visitors and influencing overall box office figures. When comparing Cruella to similar international releases, performance aligned with other mid-scale character-driven films released during the same period. For example, large fantasy-driven projects like Maleficent achieved significantly higher international earnings under normal market conditions, largely due to broader appeal and stronger emphasis on visual spectacle. In contrast, Cruella more niche positioning result in steady but less explosive performance. It is also important to note that international box office trend during this period reflect a shift in how audience engage with film. The rise of streaming platform combined with changing viewing habits has altered the traditional reliance on theatrical revenue. Cruella international earning before represent only the part of its global reaches. Digital viewership contributes significantly to its overall success. International box office performance of the film approximately 140 to 150 million dollar demonstrated regionally varied but general stable reception factors such as cultural alignment, pandemic related limitation, and hybrid distribution strategy all influences result. While not a record breaking performance, the film international earning reflected its ability to connect with specific audience across different markets, supported by a targeted market and distinctive creative identity. Cruella presents a nose financial picture by examining its worldwide gross and break-even point, particularly because it was released during a transitional period for the film industry. The movie achieved a global box office total of approximately 230 to 235 million dollars, combining both domestic and international earning. On the surface, this figure appear modest compared to the traditional Disney blockbuster, but a deeper analysis reveal a more complex financial structure influenced by multiple revenue stream and distribution strategies. From a global audience perspective, Cruella reached viewers across North America, Europe, and part of Asia through though with varying level of engagement. Its appeal was strongest among urban style conscious audience and viewers interested in character driven narrative. Unlike large scale action films that draw massive global crowd, Cruella targeted a more selective demographic. This resulted in steady but not explosive box office performance across different regions. The film's stylistic focus and thematic depth limiting its regions some market while strengthening its connection in others. A key factor in understanding the film's financial outcome is the presence of multiple revenue streams beyond theoretical earning. In addition to box office income, Cruella was released on Disney Plus through a premium access model. This allows viewers to pay an additional fee to watch the film at home, generating significant digital revenue. While exact figure for streaming incomes are not publicly detailed, industry estimates suggest that this platform contributed a substantial portion of the film's overall earning. This hybrid model represents a shift in how success is measured as streaming performances becoming increasingly important alongside traditional box office results. Another component of the revenue comes from post-theatrical marketing, including digital rental, physical media sales, and the licensing agreement. Films produced by the Walt Disney Company often benefited from large term value through these channels, especially when tied to the recognizable intellectual property. Over time, these traditional streams can significantly improve a film's financial position, even if initial box office results in returns are moderate. When analyzing the break-even point, it's important to consider both production and distribution costs. With an estimated production budget of around $200 million, the films would typically need to earn at least $400 to $500 million globally to break even under traditional model. This higher threshold account for marketing expense, distribution fee, and the fact that the studio do not retain the full box office revenue. A significant portion of ticket sale goes to the theater, maintaining the studio share is often around 50 to 60% domestically and even lower internationally. However, the break-even analysis for the film is more complex due to its hybrid release strategy. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the simultaneous availability on Disney Plus altered the revenue structure by shifting part of the earning directly to the studio. Unlike theatrical revenue, which is shared with the exhibitor, streaming income can be retained more fully by the distributor. This reduces the reliance on box office performance alone and lowers the effective break-even threshold. Distribution costs also play a critical role in the financial equation. Global marketing campaign, promotional event, and advertising contribute significantly to the overall expenses. For our films like Ruler, which emphasize style and branding, marketing efforts were extensive. Those costs can add tens of millions of dollars to the total investment, further increase the amount needed to achieve profitability. However, the strong brand recognition of Disney and the film distinctive marketing approach help maximize visibility across different markets. In comparison to the similar films, the film operates with a different financial framework. Traditional release like Maleficent rely almost entirely on theatrical revenue and therefore require higher box office total to succeed. In contrast, the film reflects a more modern model where digital platform and diversified income sources play a crucial role in overall profitability. In conclusion, while Cruella did not reach the conventional box office level needed to break even through theatrical earning alone, its financial performance must be evaluated within the context of global audience reach, multiple revenue streams, and evolving distribution strategy. The combination of box office revenue, streaming income, and long market term value suggests that the film's overall financial outcome is more balanced than its theoretical number might initially indicate. The film presents a nosed case when evaluating overall profitability, largely because its financial performance can't be judged by theoretical revenue alone to determine whether the film was profitable. It is necessary to compare revenue versus cost, consider ancillary income stream, and assesses the broader return on investment within a changing industry model. Starting with revenue versus cost, the film had an estimated production budget of around $200 million when global marketing and distribution expenses are including total costs likely rose to approximately 250 to $300 million under traditional box office model. A film with this level of investment could typically need to earn at least 400 to 500 million worldwide to reach break even. However, Cruella generated a global theatrical gross of about $230 million. However, which fall significantly below that threshold. Based purely on box office number, film would appear to underperform and potentially operate at a loss. However, this initial assessment does not account for the film's ancillary income, which play a crucial role in its financial outcome. One of the most important factors is its release on Disney Plus through a premium access model. This allows viewers to pay an additional fee to watch the film at home, generating substantial direct revenue for the Walt Disney Company. Unlike theatrical earnings, which are shared with cinema, streaming income largely retained by the studio, making it a more efficient revenue source. In addition to streaming, the films benefited from other post-release income can include digital rental, physical media sales, and licensing agreement. Over time, these sources contribute to the film's overall earning and can significantly offset initial cost, giving the films a strong visual identity and connection to well-known intellectual property is likely to maintain long-term value in this market. Another important aspect of ancillary income is brand and merchandising potential. While Cruella is not primarily a merchandise-driven film, in the same way as some Disney franchise, its emphasis on fashion and style create opportunity for cross promotional product and brand collaboration. These indirect revenue stream, though harder to quantify, add to the film's overall financial impact. When considering ROI, the picture becomes more balanced. While the theoretical ROI may appear weak due to the lower box office return, the inclusion of streaming and ancillary revenue improve the overall outlook. The hybrid release strategy influenced by the COVID-19 pandemic changes how ROI is calculated. Instead of relying solely on ticket sales, success is measured through a combination of direct revenue, subscriber growth, and long-term content value for a streaming platform. Comparatively, films like Maleficent achieve profitability primarily through strong box office performance, benefited from traditional theatrical condition. Cruella, on the other hand, reflect a transitional period in the industry where profitability is distributed across multiple channels rather than constructed in one. It is also important to recognize that Cruella contributes to the broader ecosystem of Disney content strategy by adding a high quality, recognizable title to Disney Plus. The film sports subscriber retention and platform growth. This indirect value is a key component of modern ROI calculation, even if it is not immediately visible in financial report. In conclusion, while Cruellas may not have fully profitable based on theoretical revenue alone, its overall financial performance is strengthened by ancillary income and streaming revenue. While these factors are included, the film's likely approaches or achieve a balanced ROI over time. This make it a strong example of how profitability in the modern film industry extend beyond box office number, reflecting a more diversified and evolving financial models. The film generated a wide range of audience reaction that reflect both its stylistic ambition and its departure from traditional expectation associated with the Walt Disney Company. When examined through the lenses of the demographic, viewers' feedback, and engagement, the film reveals how different audience groups responded in distant yet overlapping ways. From a demographic perspective, the film attracted a broader and slightly older audience than typical Disney release. When family viewers were still present, the strong engagement came from teenagers, young adult, and the adult viewers, particularly those between the age of 16 and 35. This shift can be attributed to the film's tone, visual style, and thematic focus, which resonated more with audience seeking and something more mature and stylistically bold. Female viewer in particularly shows strong interest, especially those drawn to fashion, creative industry, and the character driven narrative. At the same time, long-time Disney fan also contributed to the audience base driven by curiosity about a reinterpretation of a familiar property. In terms of viewers' feedback, responses were generally positive throughout without some division. Many viewers praised the film for its visual style, soundtrack, and the overall originality. The aesthetic appeal became one of the most frequent discussed aspects, with audience appreciating the bold presentation and the emphasis on design and atmosphere. This indicates that the film successfully connected with viewers who value visual storytelling and artistic direction. Another common noted element in audience reaction was the film's tone and mood. Viewers often describe the experience as engaging, energetic, and different from standard Disney productions. This uniqueness contributed to a sense of freshness, making the film stand out in a crowded entertainment landscape. However, this same quality also led to mixed reaction among some segments of the audience. Those expecting a more traditional, light-hearted Disney experience sometimes found the tone unfamiliar or less aligned with their expectations. Audience feedback also highlight the film pacing and structure, with many viewers appreciating its character focused approach. Rather than relying on constant action, the film maintained interest through style and emotional intensity. This approach appealed to viewers who prefer slower, more immersive atmosphere storytelling. On the other hand, some audience members who prefer fast-paced narrative or action-heavy content express a desire for more dynamic progression. The film engagement level extended beyond immediate viewing, particularly through social media and online discussion platforms such as Twitter and Instagram. Raw saw significant activity related to the film, with users sharing reaction, visual highlight, and stylistic inspiration. This level of engagement suggests that the film resonated not only as a viewing experience but as a cultural and aesthetic reference. A notable aspect of the audience engagement was the way viewers interacted with the film's fashion and design element. Many discussions focused on visual movement, style choices, and overall presentation, indicating that the film had an impact beyond its narrative. This style of engagement is particularly important in modern media, where visual identity can drive ongoing interest and conservation. Another factor influencing audience reaction was the film hybrid release model, which influenced both theatrically screening and availability on Disney Plus. This allowed for a wider range of viewer experience. Some audience appreciated the consequence of watching it, while others value the thematic cinematic experiences. Flexibility likely increase overall engagement as it made the film accessible to viewers with different preferences and circumstances. In terms of regional variation, audience reaction were generally consistent across major markets, though through cultural preferences influence specific responses. In regions where audiences are more expected to stylized storytelling and design focused film, the reception tended to be more enthusiastic. In contrast, in market where viewers favor action driven or traditional narrative, reaction were more mixed. This variation highlights the importance of aligning content with audience expectation across different regions. From a broader perspective, the film succeeded in generating conservation and sustained interest, which is a key indicator of audience engagement. Rather than being quickly costumed and forgotten, the film encouraged viewers to discuss its style, tone, and the overall approach. This ongoing interaction suggests that the film had a lasting impression even among those with mixed opinion. Audience reaction to the film was shaped by a combination of demographic appeal and diverse viewer feedback and a strong engagement across platforms. While not universally aligned with all expectations, the film resonated particularly well with younger style-oriented audience. Its ability to generate discussion, reflecting its distinctive position within contemporary cinema. Cruella offer a clear example of how box office performance can shape, influence, and sometimes complicate the way a film is perceived by audience, critics, and the industry. The relationship between financial success and perception is rarely straightforward. In this case, it becomes more layered due to the external factors such as receipt timing and distribution strategy. From the standpoint of critical reception, the box office number often acts as a secondary lens through which views are interpreted. When a film achieves strong financial success, it tends to reinforce positive critical opinion, creating a sense of validation. In contrast, more modest earning can lead to re-evaluation of the same review, sometimes causing audience to question whether the film truly resonating a broad level. In the sense of Cruella, critics generally responded favorably to its style, performance, and originality. However, its moderate box office performance, particularly when compared to the traditional Disney hits, introduced a sense of ambiguity. Some viewers interpreted the number as a sign that the film, while well made, did not achieve widespread impact. Others view the performance with the context of its release environment, recognizing the financial result did not fully reflect audience appreciation. The role of the Walt Disney Company is also central to how box office outcome influence perception. Disney has established a reputation for producing high grossing, globally dominant films. As a result, any release associated with the studio is often measured against exceptionally high financial expectations. When a films like Cruella generate a global total that fall below the studio typical blockbuster, it can create the impression of underperformance even if the films perform reasonably well under its specific underperformance. Even if the film performed reasonably well under its specific circumstances. This demonstrates how studio reputation set a benchmark that directly affect how financial results are interpreted. Cruella is a film that clearly targets a specific kind of viewers and understand who it is best suited and who it may not appeal to depend largely on its style, themes, and emotional. Unlike traditional Disney production, it leans into a more stylized, character-driven approach, which shape its overall audience suitability. In terms of audience style, the film is most appealing to viewers who enjoy artistic, visually expressive cinema. Those who are drawn to the film where style plays a central role in storytelling will find Cruella particularly engaging. The film emphasizes identity, mood, and personality, making it ideal for audience who appreciate fashion design and creative direction as the key element of a film's appeal. It also resonates with viewers who enjoy stories centered on personal transformation and self-expression, as the emotional journey is rooted in identity, individuality rather than external action. From a genre preferences standpoint, the film is best suited for fan of crime drama, dark comedy, and anti-hero narrative. It does not follow a traditional hero journey and instead present a morally complex perspective that may appeal to viewers who enjoy layered storytelling. Those who appreciate films that explore ambition, rebellion, and the tension between opposing aspects of identity will likely connect with its theme. Additionally, audience who prefer slower, more immersive narrative over fast-paced action will find the film pacing more satisfying. The film also carries strong emotional resonance for viewers who relate to themes of identity, recognition, and inner conflict. It speaks to individuals who have experienced the challenge of balancing different sides of themselves or navigating environment that demand conformity. The emotional tone is not purely uplifting or confronting, instead it offers a mix of empowerment and introspection. This makes it particularly meaningful for viewers who are open to exploring complex emotions rather than speaking simple feel good entertainment. When considering age group, the film is more appropriate for teenager 13 plus and adult. Teens viewers may connect with its theme of rebellion, individuality, and finding one place in this world. Adults, on the other hand, are more likely to appreciate its deeper thematic layer, stylistic choices, and most performance. While the film does not contain extreme content, its tone and complexity make it less suitable for younger children who may find it difficult to fully engage with the narrative or its emotional subtleties. On the other hand, the film may not be ideal for certain audience viewers who prefer traditional Disney storytelling with clear moral distinction, light-hearted tone, and a straightforward narrative may find Cruella less satisfying. The film's darker mood and emphasis on ambiguity can feel unfamiliar to those expecting a classic family-friendly experience. Similarly, audience who prioritize action-driven plot or fast pacing may feel that the film focuses too heavily on style and character development, resulting in a slower overall experience. Additionally, viewers who are less interested in visual, aesthetic, or thematic might struggle to connect with the films because much of its appeal lies in its atmosphere and emotional complexity. Those looking for purely plot-driven entertainment may not find it as engaging. The film requires a certain level of patience and openness to interpretation, which may not align with art viewing performances. The film is best recommended for audience who value bold visual storytelling, strong performances, and emotional layer theme. It is particularly suited for teenagers and adults with an interest in character-focused narrative and artistic presentation. However, it may not appeal to younger viewers or those seeking a more traditional, fast-paced, straightforward cinematic experience. Its strength lies in its ability to offer something different and experience that prioritizes mood, identity, and style over convention.